Hi, welcome to my channel. This is Heather with Creativity by Heather BE. I hope that you are all doing great today. So I have a 5 cards 1 kit, and this is using the new Erin Lee Creative Somewhere kit. This is a new company to me. Apparently they've been around for at least a year, and they have some amazing, wonderful products. This is one of them here. This did not come in the kit, but this is their holographic paper, and I love it. I am going to make a card using this. They have several different types of cardstock like this, and I actually just ordered some of their colored kind of holographic cardstock. It was out of stock when I ordered this one. That'll be here soon. But it's such a thick cardstock. It's just wonderful. So this is their first kit that they've ever released, and I waited up till midnight to get it when I saw it. I just could not wait to get this kit. It comes in this great mesh bag, and there was kind of a surprise on what color the bag was going to be, and I was so excited that I got the purple. I love that purple color. And this bag is jam-packed. I love this kit. I was so impressed. And the quality of the stamps. So you get two 2x6 stamp sets. This one is the sentiments, and it's got all kinds of rainbow sentiments. God keeps his promises. You've got a great thanks. Try to be a rainbow in someone's clouds. There's a somewhere. And then you also get this 2x6 stamp set that's got just different rainbows. You've got some hearts, little clouds, a star. It's just a great little rainbow set. And I love that all the rainbows are a little bit different, and the one with the little dots, love it. You also get a die in the set, and this die is all connected as one die, and I love how the rainbow's a little bit wonky, and it cut beautifully. You also get 2 stencils, and I know this was in the description, but I missed it when I was ordering it, but I was really surprised that on the bottom of the stencils, there's also 2 different clouds that you can use, which is such a great versatile way to give us more for our money. So we get the 2 different sizes of the rainbows, but then we also get the 2 different size clouds, and I love stencils. Stencils to me are something that, especially if you're just starting out in crafting, they're so versatile, they're so inexpensive, there's so many things you can do with it. And I actually am going to show you something I've never done with one in this video as well. You also get a full 6x6 rainbow rubber cling background stamp in this set. So this kit retails for $55, which is definitely significantly off the total if you bought all this stuff separately. And I have to tell you, what I love about this kit is, as much as I love the other kits that I subscribe to, when they have paper and things like that in it, I'm not really a fan of all that. I'd rather have the necessity stuff. So what I'm showing you here is I have a planner that I keep track of all the videos that I want to do, and then in the notes section I go in and I sketch out all of my cards. And then when I'm doing my videos or I'm making a card, I have it next to me so I can kind of refer back to it. And it doesn't mean that I don't change the design sometimes, but it's kind of a little reference for me. So if you get creatively stuck, that's a great way to help. So the first card, I'm going to use this background, and I have to tell you, I was shocked when I opened it. That backing is extremely thick. It's wonderful to just keep that stamp on. I have never seen a backing that thick. I was really pleasantly surprised. So my thinking for this card is, what I want to do is I'm going to put it in my Misty, as you see here, and I did take the matte out. And I'm using different rainbow colors of Simon Hurley Create ink. And I will have all of my products listed below that I used. I will also have them over on my blog as well. So I wanted to just kind of messily, I don't know if that's a word, but it is today, messily go through and just add the different rainbow colors in. So there's no real rhyme or reason. Honestly, a lot of them I'm not even doing in rainbow order. I'm just kind of grabbing a color and going through and adding it. And once I get the color down, the inks down, I'm going to take my piece of paper and a cardstock. I am using the Simon Hurley Stark White cardstock, and I've added a little bit of adhesive to the back. So I'm going to set it down on my stamp and then flip my Misty over, so now it's stuck to the back part of the Misty, as you can see there. So that way I know I've got it lined up evenly. It's exactly where I wanted it on the stamp, and that's just an easy, quick little tip to add when you're using these big background stamps. So you can see I have some areas that I need to restamp, so I'm just taking the ink pads and going right back in, and I'm honestly not even really thinking, oh wait, I did orange on this section last time, so I better do it again. I'm just kind of going in and adding color. It's a rainbow. I wanted it to kind of look more fluid. And you'll see in the final, you can kind of see some of the colors, but they did blend. They kind of went over each other, which is exactly what I wanted. So once I have all of my ink down, I decided to do a very quick sentiment on this stamp, or on this card. And I am going to go in and clean off my stamp real quick, which is something that I am horrible at. I don't know about you guys, but I will just close up the Misty and keep going with my card, and then when I'm cleaning up, I remember that I had a stamp on there. And honestly, sometimes when I go do my next card, I remember I had a stamp on there. So I'm really trying to be a little more organized in my crafting. So I decided that I wanted to just do a very simple white on black sentiment for this card, because I wanted the rainbow, that background, to really be the star of the show. So I am using a piece of Hero Arts pitch black cardstock, which is my favorite, and I decided I wanted to emboss that with the Alabaster Sparkle embossing powder. Alabaster is my favorite white embossing powder. If you've been on my channel, you know I love the Brutus Monroe Alabaster White, but I decided to give it a little bit of sparkle, so I am using the Alabaster Sparkle, and I'm stamping out that thanks. And I love the font on this thanks. I love the exclamation mark on it. All of the fonts in the sentiment set are really nice. I love the way they look. So I'm just adding my embossing powder. I did use an anti-static powder bag just to make sure my embossing powder stays where it needs to. And then I inked it up, of course, with my Brutus Monroe clear ink, embossing ink, and it's just a sticky ink that allows the powder to connect. And you can see one of my magnets from my Misty got stuck to my heat tool, which I will find later. So there you can see, and I decided, typically I would do like a sentiment strip. I love my MFT sentiment strips, but I decided for this one I wanted to just kind of go through and freehand cut around my sentiment. So that's what I'm going to do here. I really wanted to make sure that I had just the sentiment. I just did not want to put a lot over the background. And once I get that on, I am going to use some 3M foam tape to pop that up. I am going to add, and I don't believe this is on video, but I am going to add just a few kind of clear raindrop little gems to it, just to kind of give it a little bit of some sparkle. I am working on the new Altenew mat, and I have to say, I am loving this mat. I love my glass mat. Don't get me wrong. It's beside my desk. I still pull it out. But I am loving this Altenew mat. I love here in the middle where you can put your cards. I've got the exact for portrait and landscape for A2. I really, really love this mat. It wipes off beautifully. So I'll have it linked below if you're interested in it. But I have to say, it was well worth the investment. I love it. And there's our completed card 1. So cheerful and happy, and just such a great thanks card for somebody. So for card number 2, and I have to say this one is probably my favorite of all the 5 cards, and let me know down below which card is your favorite. So for this one, I wanted to use those cloud stencils on the bottom. And I am using some of the smaller Nuvo blending brushes, and these were new. I have the life-changing brushes, the Picket Fence, but I decided I wanted some that had white bristles, so it was a little easier for me to tell which ink I had used on them and if they were clean or not. And I really like these. They're very comparable to the life-changing brushes. I still have my life-changing brushes and will continue to use them, but if you're interested in a less expensive option that are white, this is a good option here, and I'll have them linked below. So I am going to start out with distressed, no, it's not Broken China. Distress ink, I can't remember which one it is. Tumble Glass. And I wasn't crazy about it. It had more of a gray look to it than I wanted. So I'm going to do that on like the top 2 little rows, and then I'm going to switch over to the Salty Ocean, and that's the one that I'm going to use for the rest of the time. And actually I'm going to cut this panel down, and I'm going to cut that top part off with the tumbled glass. So just kind of keep that in mind if you're wanting to use tumbled glass for clouds. It does give a little bit more of a gray tint. And so if you're wanting more blue, I would go with more like the Salty Ocean. So you can see I'm kind of switching back and forth because the smaller rainbow has the smaller kind of closer together clouds, and the larger rainbow has the wider kind of bigger puffy clouds. And one of the things you can also do is you can wipe off your stencil, which is what I'm about to do here, and then flip it over so you're getting a different effect for the clouds. So that's what I'm going to do, is wipe it off, and then I'm just going to flip it over so you can use both sides of the stencil. So I'm going to continue this all the way down. And off camera, I did use the die, and I used several Lawn Fawn colors, Picked Raspberry, Fake Tan, Sunflower, and Moonstone to cut out the rainbow. And so now I have a bunch of different colors of the rainbow left, and I would just stick those back in with the kit. So now I have them for other cards as well. So once I get all of my clouds done, I am going to pull out those rainbow pieces, as you can see there, and the die cuts 4. So on this one, I'm going to do the traditional red, orange, yellow. I am going to do, and then blue. Now on another card where I'm going to use these same rainbow pieces from the die, I'm going to use them kind of out of order. So I used one of the die cuts, the Picked Raspberry, and I'm just using that as my guide to fit back in my other colors. And then I'm going to take a piece of Press and Seal and put it over the top, flip it over, and then I can just pull back away the larger piece of the raspberry paper, and then I'll have my die cuts stuck to my Press and Seal so I can add my adhesive and know that they're going to stay lined up. If you don't have Press and Seal in your craft room, this is a great thing to have. It's wonderful for when you're doing die cuts like this to try to keep them lined up. If you're doing sentiments where the words are cut apart, this is a great trick to use, because the Press and Seal is sticky enough where it's going to hold them in place, but it's not going to rip or ruin your cardstock. So I'm going to grab some foam squares because I wanted this to have some dimension and pop up off that background. And these are the smallest squares I had. So what I did is I cut a strip off, and then I just cut straight down the middle of those squares. And they stayed on the backing, which was nice, because what I used to do is I would pull a little teeny one off, and I'd take my scissors and try to cut it, and it was such a pain. So by cutting the strips this way, they stay on the paper, and it's just so much easier to adhere. So once I got all of my little foam squares on, got all the papers pulled off, I'm going to add my panel back into my middle section of my Altenew map, and then just lay that down exactly where I want it. And the Press and Seal is great too because you can see through it. So you can see exactly where you're putting your die cuts. So once I get that on, I'll just push it down and then gently pull back the Press and Seal. And if you find that the Press and Seal is too sticky, you can always just kind of tap it a couple times with your hand, and that'll remove some of that sticky. So I needed a cloud, and I am not a good freehand drawer or cutter. So what I decided to do was to take one of the stencils and just brush on the outline of the cloud on this is Simon Says Stamp Sparkle Glitter paper, and then I could go in and I could cut around it, and it worked great. I thought I had a cloud die cut, and apparently I don't in my stash, although I've ordered one to take care of that. But this was a great alternative. So if you don't have a cloud die, but you have a stencil, this is a great way, if you're not able to cut it freehand to look right, like I can't. This is a great kind of little trick or hack to be able to cut out a halfway decent looking cloud without having a die. And honestly, in this case, because I wanted one that would go clear across the rainbow, even if I had a cloud die, I don't know that I would have had one wide enough. So this was just a great alternative. So once I get that cut out, I am going to adhere it down, and I'm adhering this down flat. I just use liquid glue and put that right underneath all of the little tips of the rainbow. And you can see there, I'm just using some Gina K Connect glue just to attach that down. And I am going to put this cut down panel on a piece of Lawn Fawn Fog cardstock. I love the light gray. I didn't want anything to take away from the colors of the rainbow on the actual cardstock, and I didn't really want to use black, so that fog was a great alternative. For the sentiment, I chose to use God Keeps His Promises. I love this sentiment because it was very large and it would fit perfectly underneath the rainbow and the cloud. It wasn't a sentiment that was going to get lost, but it also wasn't going to take over the clouds and the rainbow that was there. So I thought it was a great choice. I love, like I said, love the sentiments in this kit. This is Erin Lee Creative's first kit, and I have to say, I hope it is not her last. I have been so impressed with this kit, and I cannot wait to see what else she comes up with. So I am using some VersaFine black ink. I love it. It's a crisp, dark black ink. And there you can see I'm just mounting that onto the fog cardstock, and I didn't pop that up with foam tape or anything. I'm just putting it flat on using some Gina K Connect glue. And I will go back and adhere all of my panels to Neenah Solar White 110 pound card bases. I just didn't show that in the video because the video was already quite long, but I do adhere all of my panels to Neenah White card bases. And there's card number 2. Like I said, this one's probably my favorite. It was so much fun to do. I just love that stencil, and that sentiment is just awesome. So for card number 3, I decided I wanted to use the stencil again, but I wanted to do some foiling. And one of the things I really like about these stencils is you can see the line there in the middle. So if you want to just do a half rainbow, as I'm doing here, it's very simple to do. You know exactly where to line it up. And it has a heart, but I didn't want just half a heart. So what I did is I just took some purple tape and masked that off. And I'm going to use some Deco Foil Transfer Gel. And I realized I was almost out, which caused me to panic just a bit. So I need to get some more of that ordered. I love this gel. I love foiling. I think it just adds so much to a project, and it's so simple. And now they have so many gels and different ways you can do it without needing a laminator. So once that dries, and when I take it off, it's going to be a white color. And when it dries, it becomes clear. So I am going to use some of the Rainbow Shattered Rainbow Shattered foil on this card, and I'm kind of tipping it sideways because I wanted to make sure to get all of the colors in there. So once I get it kind of positioned where I want, and I did do this on a Hero Arts Pitch Black is the cardstock that's there. So once I get that down, I'm just going to cut the one side, and I'm putting it between parchment paper. If you don't have parchment paper, you can definitely just use a folded up sheet of printer paper. That will work. Most of the sets you can get, they come with parchment paper, and I've had this one for a couple years, and I just keep using it. And this laminator, if you watch any of my foiling videos before, you know I've had this laminator for my daughter's 17. I got it when she was 2. And this little thing just keeps plugging along, and I'm a teacher, so I use it a lot. And this is my favorite part of foiling, pulling that back and just seeing that gorgeous foiled effect. And I love how the one little area of the rainbow has the dots, just so fun. And you'll see there were some areas that got just a little bit of stray foiling, and I'm just using a sand eraser. I'm going to go in and just get rid of that quickly, and you will never know it's there. And I decided on this one, I wanted to cut the panel down on the right and mount it on a piece of glitter cardstock. So you can see I picked my sentiment, which is try to be a rainbow in someone's clouds, which is just such a great sentiment, especially in the times that we're in right now. and I'm trying to figure out where to put it. And I decided because I wasn't going to put a cloud on here, that I would put it at the bottom kind of as a cloud and heat emboss it in white. And I'm using just the regular Brutus Monroe Alabaster White for that. So I thought that was great. The sentiment kind of worked as being my cloud, and the sentiment, what it says, was just perfect for that. So I am using my Tim Holtz trimmer, and yes, you will notice that my little plastic thing is missing, because when I first got it, stuff kept getting caught under it, and so I just pulled it off. And yes, I have cut my fingers on it, and I have tried and tried to buy another one, and I cannot find them in stock. So for now, I'm just really careful. So you can see I cut off maybe an inch, inch and a half over on that right side, and I'm just mounting that onto a piece of Lawn Fawn Spring Sparkle paper. And then I'm also, you can see off to the right, I cut a piece of tonic gold mirror stock to put on the edge, just to kind of give it a little bit of definition between the black panel and where the glitter stock was. And I did kind of go back and forth on what color glitter stock I wanted to use. And honestly, I wasn't real crazy about using that pink color, but I thought the card turned out okay. So this was a fun card to do, and honestly, very simple. The biggest thing was just waiting for the Deco foil gel to dry. And that, I usually let it dry for about an hour. You want to make sure it's completely clear before you add that foil on and put it through your laminating machine. So I'm just adding on that little gold mirror stock. And I've had this gold mirror stock. I have the gold, silver, and red forever, and it's like it just keeps reproducing itself, because I feel like I never run out of it. I love it. And it is from Tonic Studios, and I'll have it listed below as well. So once I got everything glued on, I will add that to a card panel, and there is our card. So that is card number 3. We did some foiling. Love that shattered rainbow. Can't say enough about the stencils in this kit. So fun. So for card number 4, I decided I wanted to do some Emboss Resist. And Emboss Resist is basically what you do is I'm going to take the Somewhere stamp. It was very large, and I just loved it. And I thought about putting it on top of a rainbow on a card and kind of how I was going to use it, and I decided to do it this way. So what I'm doing is I am taking a piece of stark white cardstock, and I am just stamping the Somewhere all over it in random places. So some places it's going off the paper. I have a couple in the middle that are full. I'm flipping it upside down, and I'm just stamping it in random places. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat emboss it with white embossing powder. And it's going to be hard to see once I get it heat embossed, but when I start adding the ink, as you'll see here in a moment, it's going to start to appear, because the ink is going to resist where that embossing powder is. And it gives this really cool effect if you've never seen it. And all you have to do is go in and buff out where you emboss, get the ink off of it, and it gives you this really great vibrant background. So I'm just going in and stamping these, and you do want to kind of be careful and make sure, when I'm doing this, if I'm doing words like this, I don't like to overlap them. So I'm kind of, you can't really see in the video, but I'm kind of like tipping back and just making sure where I have my words to make sure I'm not overlapping. So once I get it all on there, I am going to take my alabaster white embossing powder, just dump it all over the panel. And you'll be able to see the words a little bit once the embossing powder gets on there. But once it's heat embossed, you can see it a little better. And then, like I said, once that ink's on there, it's just going to pop. So for this card, this is another one where I'm using the die cuts from the rainbow. And this time I cut it out in glitter sparkle paper. And I decided not to add a sentiment to this card as well. I just wanted the Somewhere in the Rainbow to kind of be the sentiment. There you can kind of see when it hits the light once it's been heat embossed, but once I start adding the Prom Queen ink to it, you're going to really see it pop out. And I'm going to do a lot of the same thing I did with this first background, where I'm going to add rainbow colors, but not in any particular rainbow order. So I'm going to go in first with the Prom Queen, and you can see it right there where that white is already starting to pop out in that word. This is such a fun technique to do. I love embossing. Embossing is so magical to me because you put this powder, you stamp, and then you put powder on, and you just get this beautiful raised just goodness. And there's so many great colors out there, and it's fairly inexpensive. And I have never ran out of a jar of embossing powder. That container of alabaster white I have used forever. And if you've watched my videos, you know I use it a lot. And it never runs out. Embossing powder is so much fun. The biggest investment you're going to have in an embossing powder, honestly, is going to be the heat gun. And the heat tool, I highly suggest getting a good heat tool. I use the Wagner. Before I had a good heat tool, I struggled with embossing. I couldn't get it to work right. My paper would warp. And once I got a good heat tool, it was worth it. And I would tell you, Joann's carries the Wagner heat tools, and I got it using a coupon. So you can find ways to get it more economically, but it is definitely worth it. So you can really see there as I've added the orange and got some of the greens in there and the purples, and how much that sentiment is popping out. I'm going to go in with some blues. And I'm also being very careful with my colors because I don't want it to get kind of muddy also. And there you can see. And if you take a cloth and just buff all that color off, you can see how bright it gets, because the ink will kind of sit on top of it, but you just wipe it off and it just is so bright white and vibrant. I love this background. And I did have some spaces, and I apologize, I was so into stamping this that I kind of went off camera a little bit. But what I did is there is in the stamp set with the rainbows, there are 4 hearts that are together in one stamp, but they're spaced out. And so I decided to stamp those. And I'm going to do that as soon as I get my rainbow on here. And I'm going to stamp those hearts just to fill in kind of some of those spaces. So for the rainbow, as I said, I didn't stick to the rainbow order of colors because there's only 4. So for this one, I'm going to use like a pink, yellow, blue, and then I added some of the purple in. And I did use the press and seal, although it was off camera. I was really into this card and not paying a bit of attention to where I was on camera. I'm really sorry about that, but I did do this one the exact same way, except I didn't use a die cut to put them in. I just put them on my workspace, used the press and seal, and put them on that way. I love the sparkle paper. I thought it really added and gave that extra, but didn't take away from the background. So there you can see I'm going in and adding those hearts. And there were some places that wouldn't fit all 4, so I just inked it up and then wiped away the ink on one of them, 2 of them, whatever it was. There you can see all the hearts and the rainbow. And that's the final card. So I left this blank inside because I felt like then I can kind of personalize it to make it whatever card I wanted that would fit for that person. Okay, last card. This is card number 5, and you see that awesome holographic paper. Love this. So what I did is I just took the holographic paper and used the die in the center, and I'm just popping those out. And I'm going to make a shaker card because I cannot have a 5 cards 1 kit without a shaker card. So I am going in and adding in my acetate, which I tend to forget a lot. So I made sure I got that down before I did anything else. And I am going to just add a whole bunch of different kind of sequins and little flowers and little hearts and just different colors in here. I am going to add my 3M foam tape. And I decided to only do 1 layer because I wanted it to be a shaker, but I also wanted them to stay pretty stationary, if that makes sense. I didn't want them to have a whole lot of room to rattle around because I wanted you to always be able to see the colors in it. I'm also going to go in and add some Nouveau Orange, and this is just kind of some glitter, just to give it a little bit of that orange color. I'm also going to add some separate blue and purple sequins in there. And I'm going to use some of the little heart sequins that I'm pulling out now in different colors to kind of decorate the outside of the card as well. And also to put on the little cloud. This is also going to be a thanks card. So I'm adding my panel on, and I realized that it was a little bit longer than I thought, but it was okay because my white panel covered up where the shaker bits were, and that's the most important part. And when I add this onto my panel, it's the same height because I had the foam tape. And there you can see how awesome that looks with that holographic paper that looks like rainbows on its own. I love, love, love this cardstock. It's so amazing. So here is a cloud that I freehand cut, and I'll be honest, when I was editing this video, I don't know why I didn't go back in and add like some ink around the cloud to give it some texture, to make it look like a kindergartner didn't do it. I don't know. This was the last card, I guess. I wasn't thinking about it, but I definitely would have went back in and done a little bit more to that little cloud. And there's our final card. So fun. I cannot say enough about this kit. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I will definitely be using these products in future videos for future crafting. I hope that you will definitely check out Erin Lee Creative. Such an amazing shop, and they ship so fast. She is still shipping now, even in the times that we're in, so I highly encourage you to check her out. Thank you so much. If you're not a subscriber, I hope you'll consider subscribing. If you are, give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to tell me which card was your favorite. Have a great day.